This might not be a very fun question, so everybody prepare yourselves. But like depression as well, sometimes seems like it's so hand in hand with meditation. And if I do a lot of, I don't know, maybe just whatever you have going through your life, sometimes I'm a little bit nervous to dive into meditation because I'm like, ooh, let's just keep it shallow. Let's keep it shallow now, And I don't
Mhm.
know if anybody else has ever experienced that, or Dean, if you have.
Mhm.
I know I'm a pretty deep diver of a person, so I can
Mhm.
I can go into some pretty dark places, which is why music works well. But
Mhm.
I don't know if there are people that have this like, let's pull back. I thought of it actually when I brought up the ego wanting to keep busy, because I see that sometimes as a defense mechanism, or like a way to kind of avoid getting too dark. So I don't know. That's a start of a question.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If I'm hearing correctly what you're saying, you're raising two situations that can be kind of tricky, kind of delicate, sensing which situation we're in here. Okay, so the one situation is that we start diving deep in our meditation, and we start experiencing our old identification with ego, per, with identifying as a separate person. Okay, I'm this hunk of meat called Dean with that's 5'10" or whatever I am, and 170 whatever pounds, and but right, and I've got all this history and all these personality quirks and all that. That's what I am. I know what I am. I've spent X many years getting to know that this is me. Right. Then we sit in meditation, and all that stuff starts to melt away. And yet the core sense of I, the awareness that was aware of the personality, aware of the history, aware of the body, that remains. Just awareness and the objects of awareness, the objects of awareness like the furniture in the room and the traffic noise outside and the body that I used to call Dean and the thoughts and beliefs and his memories that I used to call Dean, that stuff tends to go to the periphery, fade away. And it becomes more and more clear that what I am is just this silent, invisible beingness, this silent, invisible awareness. Now, what that means is that the the sense of what I thought I was, we could say in a sense, dies. This the phrase you'll hear sometimes. Oh, the ego dies, and sometimes it's presented in a kind of a scary way or in a heroic way. Okay, we're as fearless Dharma practitioners. We're going to allow our egos to die. In a way, that kind of attitude is not really accurate, and it's not really helpful because we never were the ego in the first place. The ego is a construct. The ego is a concept. So all we lose is our identification with it. But we've been so strongly identified with it for all our lives that when that identification starts to melt away, we can start to feel some panic. Oh no, I thought, my old handholds, my old, it can feel like dying. It's like the ego is the wicked witch of the West, and when the waters of purification, the waters of knowledge are thrown on her, what does she say? I'm melting. Um, so so that's one thing, and that's a good thing. That's what meditation's all about, is losing the strictures, that um, the limitation, really the prison cell of being stuck in a separate self. Now, when we've been or thought we were this for so long, it can seem scary at first, but then you just keep practicing and more you go, oh, this is liberation. I'm finally, I love the quote from this Zen student who said, it's like being a fish that's been stuck in a tank of glue all your life, and then you discover the open sea. Right? But when you have those moments of kind of panicking, of being fearful about it, that's when it's used. That's why one of the reasons we need meetings like this to get to reaffirm our clear understanding of what's actually going on and why actually this is what we want. Okay? So that's one situation. And that part's clear before I move on to part two? Is that you're muted.
Yeah, that's totally
That's
clear. I mean, there's a side that wants to say, like, when the witch melts, I still want to bottle it up and like use it for art. Like, there's that, I just won't release it. I'm like, there's this thing.
Bottle it up for art, did you say?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you don't need that for art. That's not where art comes from.
That's where I've derived all my best stuff from.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I can tell you right now. No, you didn't. The best art. Actually, I've got a quote for you. I just turned up this quote actually in the context of something I'm writing right now. You're familiar with the song "Like a Rolling Stone." That was the one in 1965. That Bob Dylan song that completely changed the face of pop music. And years later, Dylan said, quote, "It's like a ghost is writing a song like that. It gives you the song and it goes away. You don't know what it means, except that the ghost picked me to write the song." Okay, does that ring a bell? Does that ring a bell? When you are, I guarantee you, when you are at your peak creativity, there's no Kristen there. There's no Kristen there.
Yeah. Maybe other people can resonate with this too, because it's like, I want it to be okay to leave. I need sort of the permission you just gave. I don't need it, but I appreciate the permission you gave me to let it go. But I do feel like the way our culture works, at least in America, it really feeds the crap out of that individualistic, especially for, diehard tough women climbing a ladder or something. I mean, we're fueling that ego a lot all day. And so, it's a weird thing to mix it with society and then, come back to like no man's land.
Yeah, no man's land, no woman's land, no
woman's land.
Nobody's land. Yeah, it is. It's the land of being nobody. And talk about creative women. Emily Dickinson, "I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us." Right? She knew. So, and you know what? Everyone's got their version of, women who have, they're under pressure to prove their toughness in the workplace, in society. Yeah, so that's their, that's the context for their feeling like they have to commit to ego. But everyone's got their context. Everyone's got an excuse. If you want to be somebody, you can always find a reason. You can always find a rationale, right? And yes, there is a certain element of that when you start to lose that identification with the ego. I don't want to say it's scary. It can seem scary. It's not inherently scary. It can seem scary from the point of view of the ego. It's completely scary because it's annihilation of the ego. But the thing is, you don't lose anything. You don't lose any of the, if you're the creative artist, you're the tough woman in the workplace or in the social world or whatever it is, you've still got all that equipment. You've still got all your equipment. You've still got all your moves. But it's just that you're no longer narrowly stuck in being identified with them. You can still use them, but you're coming from out here. a place that's not limited by them. And so you can see the whole picture much more clearly and you can wield them much more skillfully.
Yeah, yeah. What you just made me think of was like I know that the almost the desperation feeling it gets to when that is released and the witch goes, it feels really lonely for me. And I don't know if you've talked about that before, but it
Hmm.
does feel like even maybe as an only child or something, I developed like an imaginary ego friend,
Yeah.
and that friend dies, and then I think the depth of what I'm trying to describe that might lead to your second point is that the depression is basically like it's totally fearful because it's totally unknown. And I've never felt that like lonely to the core level of lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel for sure losing yourself, but it feels
Yeah.
like you're, yeah, losing your
Yeah.
backbone,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
spine.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you feel lonely, that means there's still someone there to be lonely. It means you haven't gone far enough. It's like the saying goes. Some people attribute this one to Winston Churchill. I don't know who said it. It's going through hell. Keep going. Keep going. Now, having said that, we have to talk about depression for a minute. Okay. So depression. This is like in a way this is like our earlier discussion tonight of tinnitus. There is a clinical condition where there's some chemical imbalance and it's called depression. And it happens to people, who've never meditated, or who have meditated, and I've had some experience of that myself, so I'm familiar with the flavor of it. Uh, I'm very fortunate in that I never got stuck in it chronically and crushingly the way some people have. But so quantitatively, I didn't get crushed by it, but qualitatively, I'm very familiar with it. This feeling of just being emotionally. This is my experience of it. Emotionally, just flat. There's just no joy. There's no hope. There's no nothing, and there's no prospect that it's ever going to. It's like I'm never going to be happy, and retroactively, I never was. I don't know if that rings a bell for you or for other people. Is that the flavor? Yeah, that's my experience of it, and it is in some ways the most difficult of the so-called the problematic emotions like anger and fear, and the depression is the most problematic of them because it makes you just want to shut down. It makes you tend to people can be standing there offering you all kinds of help, and you tend to just shut down and not listen to it. So for people who are really suffering from depression, once again, A, consult with competent professionals, okay? Because there may be a situation where some medication, some kind of therapy or something can rebalance the chemical imbalance, and then what seemed like existential blackness. The universe is just the universe sucks. Life is meaningless. Life is empty. It's flat. There's nothing. The whole Macbeth, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, etc. That seems like, oh, that's just life. And then it turns out, no, it was just a little quirk of your blood chemistry that needed to be corrected. So always check the stuff out with the professionals. After that, for people who have a lot of depression, silent sitting meditation can still be, is a good practice, but it's really usually good to have more active forms of practice. Chanting mantras, banging the drum, walking. When I used to study with Ngakchung Rinpoche, he talked about for people who were depressed. He said, take hot showers and cold showers and have like the scratchy brush to anything to get the senses opened up, roughing up your skin and smelling the earth and smelling the flowers. And he said, and the really good therapy, he said, but you probably won't be willing to do it, is he says you hire one of these survivalists and you go on a plane with a survivalist and you have you and him dropped like in the middle of the frozen Arctic wastes. So that then in order to survive, you have to follow his or her instructions and just keep walking and building the campfire and doing all that stuff that you have to do to keep going, that forces you to be active. Interestingly enough, in developing nations, where people are poor, you don't hear a lot about depression. I think depression tends to be a disease of prosperous nations where we can, afford to sit around. Is that landing for you, Kristen? Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, very helpful. It actually, just the last point you brought up about that sort of the dropping into the jungle
Yeah.
and the forcing,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that sort of back to what we were talking about last week with Perry and the doing, or at least what I had brought up with the doer? This is actually the kind of thing I wanted to get to the core of, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm a pro at the just like get up and move on and do that. But when I go into meditation,
Mm-hmm.
I drop all that doer stuff. And that's where I can enter into a dark space-ish, probably a non-medical dark space, but
Good.
every once in a while, a
Yeah.
panic attack, I go through how I come out and then I start doing again.
Okay. So that sounds more like you're in scenario number one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
But so
Good.
that whole, the partnership of the forcing oneself, like, tell me how that is good for certain people when
Yeah.
that seems like the doer side of what we're dropping.
Yeah, okay. Just hold off with this word doer for a minute. We'll come back to it. But just talking about the therapeutic, effects of having a program of doing for most of us. Again, because I, have a history of some, depressive tendencies, I used to, because for, the only grown up day job that I ever had was as a school teacher for 33 years. And what I experienced was, during the school year, I'd be very engaged. There was always, kids to meet with and papers to mark and lessons to prepare and so forth. So I was always engaged. And meanwhile, in the evenings and weekends, I'm teaching meditation. I'm raising a couple of kids, all that. Then summer vacation would start. And this happened every year without fail, like clockwork. 2 weeks into summer vacation, I'd be just kind of standing there in the living room, looking out the window and saying something to Maggie, my wife, about, life being meaningless or what's it all about or something. And after a couple of cycles of this, going through a couple of, Junes of this, Maggie, she would remind me. That became her part of her job description. Remind me, Dean, does this sound familiar? Where are we in the calendar? 2 weeks into summer vacation. Oh, right. Thank you. And then I know, okay, I've got to get rolling and, write a book or something to get engaged again. So yeah, it may be surprising, especially, for, like I'm a meditation teacher. I'm advocating people sitting and just being. Uh, but that's for, 15 minutes, half an hour a day. The other 23 hours, you dive in. Maharishi used to use the example, he'd say meditation is like pulling the arrow back on the bow, right? By pulling the arrow back on the bow, you invest it with potential energy. Then the other 23 hours of the day, you let the arrow fly forward toward the target of activity and accomplishment. Now that potential energy becomes kinetic energy. So yeah, do. And then for your half hour or whatever meditation, be. I'll keep alternating. Do, be, do. The wisdom of Sri Frank Sinatra ji.
Thanks,
Now,
Dean. That's good.
yeah, okay. But you're one other thing about the doer, okay? So none of this has to do with the sense of a doer. This is just plunge into doing. The sense of a doer is the sense that, because what we actually are, which is pure awareness, pure being, can't do anything because it doesn't have, arms and legs and thoughts or any of that. It's only the apparent separate self that appears to do stuff, right? So it's only a Dean or a Kristen that can do stuff. What we find out in meditation is there is no Dean, there is no Kristen, there's just stuff happening. There's just stuff happening. There's just waves of activity happening on the surface of the ocean of being, and we draw a circle around some activity over here, and we call all that Kristen, or we call all that Dean, and that unspooling of the sense of a separate self, of a doer, that happens in time. It's not something we have to worry about a lot.
I'm really glad you brought up the actions just kind of swirling around, because that's one of the ways that I feel like I can handle like Trump or anybody like that too, because I'm really getting clear on like separating action from the entity, right? So it's not like, he's a collection of hereditary action from his father and father and father, whatever else, right? It's not,
Yeah.
not even.
Yeah. Some great sage, I forget who it was, said that, if human beings were all just like made out of transparent crystal, so we could see into them and see all the causes and conditions that have formed them and that give form to their every thought and word and deed. If we could see like that, then we would feel nothing for all those other beings but boundless compassion. Boundless compassion. Now, I mean, I ain't there. I ain't there. But it's good to, as the poet said, a man's reach should exceed his grasp. We can be going in that direction. Going in that direction. Okay?